just, watching them over and over again as they come out, different Liberal ministers, different MPs, and tell us about why we should elect them because they're going to be the party of change, and changing all the policies that they did themselves the last 9 years, I think is just the most ridiculous level of hypocrisy. And I'm not on board with any of it. I'm not interested in any of that crap until they have, the decency to admit that they've screwed this all up. They've put a lot of people in a tough position. And now they just want to pretend like that was someone else's mistake and we should elect them again. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a little upset about it. And for that alone, I'm not even interested in considering them. Well, whatever. What have you guys been up to this week other than being cold, like I normally mention?
Mostly cold.
Mostly, yeah. Just being cold.
I painted the washroom, and then we watched hockey. At least I watched hockey. Did you guys watch hockey?
I didn't.
Everybody loves to watch hockey.
Normally I do, but I didn't this week.
You were talking about hockey last week.
I was.
And then what happened?
I took a week off.
You mentioned the Four Nations thing briefly, and then we didn't even talk about it.
Well, Josh, I had to hang a mirror on a wall, and that took me a while. Okay, so I had no time for hockey.
Well, what is the Four Nations thing?
Don't ask me.
Usually we have all-star games in these professional sports.
Yeah.
And the NHL decided to do something different this week, and it was basically
the Four Nations face-off.
Yeah. The Four Nations face-off, which is like a mini Olympics thing with what teams was it? Canada, US, Sweden,
and
Finland. That's right. And rather than have like like a East versus West game or whatever, they basically had Four Nations instead of four games. And I think the NHL is representing how it is the best sport, because I've watched every other league play all-star type tournaments and everything. And you can't even consider that part of the sport because it's just boring ass dunk competitions. Well, the dunk competition is pretty good.
I don't even get excited about all-star games anymore.
Because they're not really trying that hard, are they?
I don't know. The Michael Lee is about to drop some knowledge on you.
I was just going to say the all-star weekend for basketball is still pretty cool to a lot of people. It still sells like crazy when they announce it. I actually watched some of the dunk competition this past weekend. Do I know anybody who did it? Not a clue in the world, but it was still cool to see the guy jump over a car.
Yeah,
they still do that kind of stuff.
They do.
The All-Star game was on, I think, Friday, and there was like people like Kevin Hart. There was Bailey from WWE. Like there was a bunch of people who actually played it in this, and it was pretty cool to watch that. Sunday was the All-Star game, and it's not the way it used to be, where it's like just these two super teams going off each other. I think it's four different people, like Shaq, I think is one of them. Charles Barkley, I think is another one of them. Two other people I can't remember. They actually pick their own teams, and they basically verse each other the entire time. It's like Team Shaq, Team Charles, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. And have you watched MLB?
No.
All-Star?
All-Star Weekend then is basically, that's a home run derby, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of interesting now that some of these leagues are changing up the formula for the All-Star Weekend.
Well, you go and watch the NHL one, and it's a little mini tournament of these four teams. And we watched Canada and the U.S. go at it. That was a Friday night, I believe it was.
Was there any hockey in the middle of that?
It was a lot of fighting, and it was a lot of intense hockey. I got to say, that was actual sport. That was cool. Some intense hockey. It wasn't like the Shaq team versus whatever team. It was like these guys were coming to play. They had some kind of issue to settle on the ice, and I was like, oh yeah, let's watch it. It was like real like competitive NHL or competitive Olympic style hockey. It was great, and you know what? It's not even all over. It's like it's a series here, basically a mini series, and who's coming up next here soon?
Canada plays U.S. again.
Rematch.
On Thursday night.
Big game. You'll be watching it tonight, even. At least,
What?
Well, when this comes out.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, my brain.
Yeah,
that's right. You're probably not even watching League Spec because that's more important there. They got to watch the All-Star game.
Yeah. That's right. That's
And then watch us later on Saturday night.
yeah. And then if you like it, share with a friend.
Thank you, Adam. What else happened this week?
I don't know, not too much.
Yeah, something big happened in Toronto.
Oh, yeah, it was a plane crash.
Well, yes, that did happen.
Yeah.
That plane crash, that was something.
Has everybody seen this? Like, Michael Lee, pull it up and let's just see this little Delta 80 person passenger plane land at the Toronto Pearson International Airport.
Landing is one way to put it.
Yeah,
It was a crash landing.
Here we go.
Looks kind of normal.
Right up until
go.
it doesn't.
Oh, that looks rough.
Oh,
And it's upside
oh
down.
no.
That is definitely not good.
And it's definitely catching fire.
That is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Tower, you're seeing this airplane just crash into three.
It just crashed. That's it.
Thankfully, everybody survived, though, I've heard.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That would be a pretty frightening experience.
Well, let me ask you guys.
What are you asking us?
Imagine you were on that plane, just being told you're
Because
gonna have a
it's
little
just, like,
crash
spinning
landing, and then it lands like that. Well, what would you feel?
Did they knew that was Did they know?
Good English.
Did they? There's leak specking again. Did they know that was coming?
They did warn them on descent that it would be a rough landing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it a rough landing because of the snow that was on the runway?
No, there was definitely a problem with they haven't released that information to my knowledge quite yet.
Well, because I saw something about there was like a freak gust of wind or something.
Yeah. No, I'd heard the control tower and the pilot communicating, and they knew it was going to be a rough landing. There might have been some type of issue, or it might have been the wind, like you're saying. Those experts kind of knew how it was going to be. But
like a rough landing is like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been through a rough landing. The plane's not upside down and on fire.
Exactly.
well, it was rough up until it bounced and then flipped upside down.
And then it was a little more than rough. That was
yeah, then it was a crash landing.
Like the amount of people that actually posted online. Like,
Imagine being that guy that just got off the plane and was filming like immediately when you almost died.
there was people who were upside down in seats that were still filming.
well,
There was a lady who was on her Snapchat that was upside down, going, "Oh my god, my plane just crashed."
what else are you gonna do, really?
Like
That's what you do these
Record
days.
my final moments, I guess.
pretty much.
Would you do it if you were on the plane, guys?
I don't
know.
I have to gather my bearings. I don't even know, man.
I would just be like, well,
oh my gosh.
I'm alive. All right.
Well, I'm glad everyone's alive.
Yeah.
At least to date, from what we've heard, everyone's okay, and that's good.
There's no deaths. There was a few critical injuries.
I would definitely be the guy outside the plane after surviving and being like, I'm alive. I gotta take a picture or something. Like, I'd be like telling somebody, like, take a picture of me in front of this plane. I just survived the crash landing. No one's gonna believe this story. I gotta have proof.
I mean,
I don't take a
just-
lot of pictures when I go out to places, but for that instance, I would be like, I have to tell this story until the day I'm dead.
This guy would come rolling out of the plane and he'd just be yelling and
He'd be on
all
fire, going,
loud
"Someone take a picture of this. No one's gonna believe me."
and- like, I gotta put this on my dating profile.
That's right. Survived the plane crash.
Ah.
2 truths and a lie, and it's like, I don't believe that one. Well, here's the picture. That would be funny.
Well, crazy.
Yeah.
Seems like there's been a few crashes lately. Like,
It's been kind of scary.
Are we just hearing about more things, or what? Like, it's the crash in the
Well,
U.S. there with the
no.
helicopter.
Wasn't there like 6 in like the first 4 weeks of Trump taking presidency,
I don't know if it was
or like 6
six-
like
the-
It was
incidents.
Trump's fault. Trump did it. I can
there's
accept
6.
that.
There has been about 6 or 7 in the last few months, at least, sometime around there. Yeah.
That's unusual, right? Like,
It's
normally
absolutely-
we don't hear about plane crashes. It's very rare.
Well, you can go down that conspiracy hole if you want, but there's
What else am I
some
gonna
discussion about
Stuck here.
the people in quality control for Boeing and all that just suddenly passed away and killed themselves, off-screened themselves, whatever they call it.
do? Wait, what?
What?
You never heard that?
No.
Yeah, I'm just
I
saying.
have heard none of this.
Yeah, go down the rabbit hole about Boeing and why they basically have this theory that
Did you just
there
take
is-
us down that rabbit hole?
There is some kind of quality control problem with their planes, and they're trying to hide it. That is the summary of what the conspiracy is saying.
Well, I remember all the surrounding the 737. What was it, Max 8?
Yeah.
That there was some issues with that. I don't remember the details, but they grounded them for a while.
Yeah.
That's another Boeing plane, right?
Like their mom and dad said they couldn't go out.
Yeah. So you go sit in your room, plane. Sit in your room and think about what
Yeah.
you've done.
Yep. Been a bad plane.
So okay, so Boeing's got some stuff going on then.
That's a little scary.
Yeah. Joshua Dean and John Barnett died suddenly in 2024 after going public with their concerns about Boeing's safety.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, conspiracy theories are fun.
Tinfoil hat time.
To read into. Yeah, I put my tinfoil hat on with a little bit of chrism. I enjoy it.
We're a bunch of
fun.
grifters, so it makes sense. We should,
It's totally okay.
yeah.
You know what? Sometimes those guys are actually right.
Yes, true.
And then you turn around and say, "Well, I criticized that guy, and now I look like an idiot."
Yeah, well,
So at least
how like life.
I'll just listen to them. Sometimes people are right and you're wrong. That's all it is to it.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm. Yes. What else we got to discuss here this week? What else? What other topics do we have?
I would like to talk about what I've seen recently down the street and on the news everywhere. I think I even pulled up a CTV news article. Canada flags are making extra sales here, and people are putting them up. There seems to be renewed pride in this country for some reason or another. Adam, do you know why that would be?
Because people suddenly decided they like the colors red and white.
I don't blame them. They're good colors.
Yeah. And
So close,
maybe
Yes.
if I'm wearing my tinfoil hat again,
Okay.
maybe
I
because
didn't know you had one too, but I'll go.
Something is going on with that guy in the U.S. and he's been saying something about Canada. Maybe we mentioned it in our podcast.
Yep.
Maybe,
That's
possibly.
that is correct.
Could it be that we don't want to be the 51st state? And we
chance.
are trying to show that?
That is it. As much as booing the American anthem might not be the best choice when you get your asses handed to you in a hockey game.
Yeah, that should probably stop happening.
Yeah, I do think that.
I guess maybe
Nice
the point has been made. Maybe stop now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael, pull up that article that we have about this.
The flag flies for all. Facing threats, Canada sees renewed sense of pride in flag.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're saying.
Well-
Even though most of us have had our F Trudeau flags. I mean, not me.
I drive past one a lot.
I see them quite
It's
a bit.
there. I'm just saying. Yeah, you guys. Those are the flags we saw for a while, and now people are putting up their Canada flags.
Wait a second. You're saying that there's we all have trucks here, not one of us has an F Trudeau flag on it?
I mean,
Are we doing this wrong?
I mean, I thought about it a couple years ago, but I just didn't bother wasting my energy on that negativity.
What if it gave you extra horsepower?
Oh, then I'd do it for
Oh,
sure.
yeah,
sure, at
Then
that
you do.
It'd be if it's like a K&N air filter, I'd totally do it.
Hey, that's shots fired. That's okay.
What's interesting about this flag thing, though, I read that actually south of the border, sales are also increasing of Canadian flags.
From Canadians down there?
I assume, or is it Americans that appreciate Canada? Maybe a combination of the two.
Maybe.
One thing I feel confident about is a good chance all those flags are made in China.
I did see a Canadian supplier who is making them and doing quite well. That was in one of the articles on this. But regardless of that fact, yeah, a lot of stuff is made in China. So go find the made in Canada version of your flag. If it's not, I'm sorry, dispose of it correctly and get the made in Canada one.
Yeah. Otherwise, Josh will put on.
Otherwise,
his
you're just not
tinfoil hat and
supporting.
come to
You're
see
just
you.
not supporting Buy Canadian, like we said.
Yeah.
We've all been talking about the pride. Make it happen.
I was noticing when I went to Costco this week that I was actually paying attention to all the little signs on the products now that say it's a product of this country, product of that country, and we were actually making decisions based on stuff, where it was coming from. So
That's good. I like that idea,
yeah, why not? They make it easy enough.
and that's good for the consumer.
I think so.
I just want to ask with this Canada Pride thing, how far do you think it's going to go? Do you think people are actually going to start asking for a policy change, or are we just rah wave the flag and that's it? Nothing substantial is going to happen.
Well, I was skeptical. I'm still a little skeptical that people's actions will be enough to change anything. But I am also a little curious now because it's going further than I expected it to, and it's possible I'm incorrect, and maybe it's actually going to be impactful enough that we might see some impact on the amount of money we're spending on American products and services.
And in actual Canadian policy changes?
Canadian policy changes would be great, but we're not getting any of those until we have a new government to make those policy changes.
What do you mean? We just talked about how the Liberal government has already changed their policies to the Conservative ones.
Well, yeah, that's their. We want you to,
vote for us.
Vote for us.
We
policies.
know that's popular.
Yeah, so then we can just flip flop on them and then bring them back with a different name or some nonsense that they'll manage to do for sure. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is I am kind of following the Buy Canadian and that kind of stuff, and I'm
the Canada Pride.
Interested to see if it's not all talk and enough people will make changes that it affects someone's bottom line. It's very, very interesting.
Excellent. On that note, I'm gonna move on to another story.
Okay, he's moving on. I guess we'll go with him. Should we go with him, Michael Lee?
Yeah, let's go with him.
All right, we're going with you. Where are we going?
Back to the Team Canada approach that the government officials like to talk about with that whole 51st state thing that people love to hear about and criticize about.
I am really getting sick of that shit.
Well, regardless of it, some people really believe it. And they think it's something that's for sure going to happen, that Trump's serious. And I mean, you never can take that guy if he's actually serious or not. He says a lot of stuff that never actually happens. He's another hot air guy, kind of like our Justin Trudeau. But the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, what's his name?
Nick Fury.
No, Thomas Fury. both wrong?
Premier Fury.
Premier Fury was on I think it's a CTV show with Vashi Kapelos, and he was talking about how after being in the U.S., Donald Trump has doubled down on the seriousness of that 51st state, and I think it's a serious thing that's going to happen. That Premier, do you guys? And I mean, he went on for 6 or 7 minutes in the CTV News video that I watched about this.
Can we watch some of that video? Because I didn't see it.
Let me ask you. Start off by asking you about that trip, and more specifically, if you feel any further ahead, trying to understand where this is going after that trip.
I'm not sure I feel further ahead. I think there was some constructive conversations that occurred throughout D.C. With all the premiers. But unfortunately, it's the president himself right now who is making the decisions, who's calling the shots, who's amping up the rhetoric. So while some were constructive in us communicating the Canadian narrative of the shared economies and how this will hurt Americans as much as Canadians, to hear the president speak about sovereignty, and then to hear the attacks on sovereignty, and then to hear his senior staff convey that he is very serious when he's talking about the 51st state, was incredibly concerning. So from that perspective, I took away that as I've said for many times, even on your show, that he's not joking. In fact, they said as much. They said people dismiss him as joking, and then it becomes a policy, and then it becomes a reality. So as Canadians, we need to realize that he is not joking, that he is definitively looking towards the 51st state being Canada. This is going to be a sustained attack on who we are as Canadians. And I think we need to make sure that we understand that, we reflect on that, and perhaps we adjust our strategy accordingly.
And what does adjusting our strategy look like? Like how much, how much pain should we be prepared for?
Well, it's going to sound strange for a Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador to agree with Prime Minister Harper, former Prime Minister Harper, but I certainly, the theme of his sentiment, I agree with. There can be no price that is too extreme to protect the sharp edges of the maple leaf. We cannot let the acuity of this situation, of this economic attack on Canada, erode the maple leaf, erode who we are, erode our national values, our identity, our unity. We just can't let it happen. And so that is going to come with significant resolve. It's going to need Canadians to come
All
together.
right,
as they
we
have,
can
to
cut
stay
this
united.
video short because this guy just
not in the
rambles
short term,
on
but
about
He's
no
not-
actual policy ideas
He's not
or
saying
idea.
anything.
He's not saying anything of importance.
And he's just
And-
telling us not to let the things erode that Liberal Prime Minister has been eroding for the last 9 years. So it's not super impressive. It's,
I just want to make a comment.
can you
If
please
guys
make a comment?
don't understand the reference to Stephen Harper's comment, if you
I did read that, but you might as well fill us in.
fill in everybody that the previous prime minister there is, I think he's finished writing a book and he's releasing it. And in a closed door statement to some of his members, he stated that he would impoverish the nation in order to assert Canadian sovereignty. What does that mean, Adam?
I mean, he's essentially saying he'll pay any price, right? He'll if we have to take a hit financially, whatever, he would do anything to make sure that we don't become the 51st state. What does it mean exactly? I mean, maybe I need to read the book or to get more context, but it seems fairly clear. He's saying it doesn't matter what it takes, just do it.
And the premier here agrees with Stephen Harper. Is there any alternative reason why he might be continuing this 51st narrative? Or is it in complete honesty that this politician simply just cares about Canada?
I am glad that you brought this up. I think I am very confident that the sudden boost in Liberal polling that has been brought on by all of this 51st state nonsense happening has something to do with it.
Yep. The polling is a lot tighter for a upcoming federal election between Liberals and Conservatives. So the premier is what party in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador?
Surprisingly, he's a Liberal, Josh.
Oh, so we're thinking that a Liberal is in agreement with the federal Liberal Party, and maybe it's the left hand and the right hand patting both each other on the back kind of situation and extenuating the truth of this into a more popular narrative so that layman people that don't understand the finer details of the politics and the discussions in the news might just be upset.
Is that what you think? This guy's got his tinfoil hat on again.
That's pretty much what I think. As I've stated before with Donald Trump, I think he says a lot of hot air BS stuff, and some stuff he can make happen because it's domestic policy for them. But foreign stuff like taking over another sovereign nation is a lot more complicated and serious than any American president can simply do. The former U.S. ambassador to Canada, who was Democratic, kind of dismissed the entire
Is that
Trump.
Bob Ray?
Who was that?
Bob Ray?
No. The U.S. ambassador to Canada.
Okay.
He basically was saying that Trump's just doing this in an alternate not alternate reality, but an alternate method, like a harsher sense, and that he has no actual power to do this. Like we said before, aside from invading the country, I mean, is extremely difficult to just take over another country, even the Americans who have all that military power.
Yeah, and who knows? The rest of the world might have something to say about it if the U.S. starts invading places. They have a lot of military bases in a lot of other countries that may suddenly become unwanted if they started invading. But, will they have time to invade Canada while they're busy bulldozing Gaza and building whatever resort he's going to build over there? Whatever nonsense he was saying last week.
Magaza or something. Yeah. That's just it. He just had they say all these things and
he needs to take over Greenland and the Panama Canal.
Well, that's settled down a little bit, the Greenland thing. They might not be doing that right away. But according to that premier, he's serious, and I'm talking about it because the news likes to make a big deal of it. But I feel that the news is just trying to get ratings, and I don't foresee it.
Liberals are trying to get good polling numbers.
That's how we feel about it. Michael Lee, can we ask you, do you feel any worry from the rhetoric from Donald Trump after we even explain our opinions? Does it change any of your perception on it?
No, I don't think he's going to be able to do what he wants to do. Like, I'm not super political, as everybody here knows, but to be able to turn our country into a 51st state, do you have any idea the hoops you're gonna have to go through? All of the voting, all of the like the political um, aspirations of it all. Like, how are you gonna do this?
Yeah.
Like, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
And what about all the fallout after
exactly.
you do it?
Like, you're just gonna end up hurting your own country. I feel in the end.
Well, he's not too worried about that. Like, a lot of his plans will hurt their country a little bit.
This is fair, but I really think that it's not gonna happen. It's just him blowing smoke.
I think it's a means to him getting what he wants. He's
Yes.
like he's demanding everything, and then one day when eventually they they renegotiate that USMCA or whatever, he'll be able to be like, yes, I arranged some stuff and we got some things and I didn't have to invade them, so that's why I'm excellent, and like I solved all these problems without invading. He'll just be able to he'll spin it to some kind of victory for himself.
Yeah, he'll say they were tough. They're always tough to negotiate with, but we got what we wanted. We wanted.
Well, I'm glad we're tough to negotiate with. I don't want to be a pushover.
Yeah,
I feel like that's
exactly.
a compliment.
It is kind of. You're right.
Yeah, they're tough to negotiate with too.
Well, I wouldn't worry about it. I think,
Josh wouldn't worry about
I think we're just gonna. I just think we're gonna hear about that in the news because it's popular. That's how I feel. Mike doesn't even believe it right now. He's not worried. So if Mike's not worried, we should all be content. It's just when they start worrying all of us that and reason goes out the window, that then I'd be worried.
Like, I won't lie, when he first brought it up, like when he first took office and everything, I was slightly worried at that point, going, can he actually do this?
Yeah.
But then the more we've spoken about it and the more we've read about it and everything else, and the details kind of came out about it, it was like, okay, well, no, this is not so simple.
And I mean, like, as we said, the previous Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, was totally against this idea of losing our national sovereignty. I would pose a question to the average Canadian and to us here in the room, also the average Canadian. the nature.
Is he trying to call us common? It's a weekly occurrence.
The nature of of losing money and becoming impoverished and economic status. To what extent do you, as the common Canadian, think that they could handle it? If you were to find out that the economic recession or depression was to occur and you would be losing your homes, losing your jobs, incomes going down in families, you might have to move into multifamily houses because economic stress becomes such a reality in this country from U.S. pressures or what have you, or U.S. and Canadian pressures on the country. Would you support that on an individual level versus the Canadian pride level that we were talking about? Would you move in with your friends or sell your homes or try to bankrupt yourselves just to stay a Canadian? Or would you seek better opportunities south of the border if they exist there?
Not necessarily south of the border. There's better opportunities in Europe as well.
Yeah.
Good point.
And if I was able to, I would probably consider relocating.
And the sentiment might stand to a lot of Canadians. As much as you might want to keep the sovereignty of the nation, how much of the country actually moves elsewhere?
Well, that might be part of what impoverishes. Like, I guess people with the means will probably, they might leave if there's a chance to them going backwards. They might look for a place where they don't. And that would take money out of the country, so that leads towards, quote unquote, impoverishing it. The point of the matter is, and here I go, I'm going to break that record again. Because, once a week I got to say, we have so much here in Canada that we can use to enrich ourselves. And if we would just take advantage of it, natural resources is such a big one. We have so much of it. Then we could, be well on our way towards not being impoverished. And, even if we still had to deal with this nonsense from the U.S., we could probably pull through it with, minimal disruption to people's lifestyle. We need to get on the right path.
Well, thank you for your continuous weekly rant, Adam. I do appreciate you saying what needs to be said.
Is it getting anything done, or am I just blowing hot air?
It's the same as Canadian policy.
So I'm blowing hot air.
Yeah, that brings me to the final question that I would like to discuss. We always just respond to the news, but I'd like to open up and elaborate on a discussion point that Michael Lee brought up in the shorts this last week here. He asked us, and all of you out in internet land,
And nobody wanted to answer his question.
we're asking his question again. Who do you think is better for this for Canada? Liberals or conservatives? Like, we've talked about the current Mark Carney coming in to power. The guy's currently leading and whooping ass in the fundraising department of all candidates, but it's likely to be him as the next prime minister, or there'll be an election shortly. Regardless, it's going to be liberals or conservatives. That's the only options we've had here in Canada that have come to power. What reasons do you think that we should keep these liberal policies in place versus what reasons do we think conservatives are better? Adam, do you have any enlightenment as to what you think is best? Because you're saying develop these resources in Canada, and how many years have we waited for any new pipelines to be built, and why haven't these pipelines been built? And why haven't we had this economic growth? We've had 9 years of Justin Trudeau Liberals to accomplish these tasks.
Well, why don't we do a quick check-in on Mark Carney's, his march towards just having the prime minister job dropped in his lap. What is he promising now? When he first came upon the scene and everyone was talking about axe the tax, and then he came in and said, yes,
Conservatives were.
I will. Yes, conservatives were talking about axe the tax.
And it was popular.
And now the liberals are also talking about it.
Yeah.
But Mark Carney, what did he do? Okay, so he came in the door and he said, yes, this is unpopular. I think we need to get rid of it. And I think here at Spec, we speculated that there was more to that. And now we have the proof that we are correct, because he is not going to axe the tax. He is simply going to shift it away from the consumer, and he's going to shift it onto the industrial, the manufacturers, farmers, all of them. They're going to pay more carbon tax than they are now. And he thinks that this will be something he gets away with, because I guess his thought is the average, here we are with the average Canadian again.
That's who we love.
The average Canadian doesn't realize that what we pay in carbon tax is far more than just the initial tax, like a few, however many cents added to our liter of gas. There's so many times that the carbon tax hits everything before you buy it. If you're buying food, the farmer was taxed. If you're buying something that was manufactured, the manufacturer was taxed. If you're buying something that was driven anywhere to a store or was moved by a plane or ship, the fuel that was used to move that was taxed. All of this just to move something from create it, move it from one location to another, and get it somewhere where you can buy it yourself. Like, you pay some effect of that carbon tax repeatedly just to buy one item. And he is only going to remove the most obvious initial part of what you might say is how you're directly paying the carbon tax. And then all the ways you're indirectly paying, he's actually going to increase. So I just wanted to get that out there, because I know that some people are saying, yes, he's going to remove the carbon tax. And the fact is he's not, and he will make it worse. So I just wanted to quickly check in with that before we go on to talking about Josh's question.
That is part of my question, actually. It is, what are the reasons, conservative versus liberal? So we're saying conservatives are liberals are going to continue on this taxation policy of saving the entire world and planet and climate change and all that by taxing Canadians
taxing
excessively.
us into the ground. Yeah. So that's a big knock against the liberals. That alone, I think, is enough for me to not even give them a chance. But just, watching them over and over again as they come out, different liberal ministers, different MPs, and tell us about why we should elect them, because they're going to be the party of change, and changing all the policies that they did themselves the last 9 years, I think, is just the most ridiculous level of hypocrisy. And I'm not on board with any of it. I'm not interested in any of that crap until they have, the decency to admit that they've screwed this all up. They've put a lot of people in a tough position. And now they just want to pretend like that was someone else's mistake and we should elect them again. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a little upset about it. And for that alone, I'm not even interested in considering them.
Well, that's short material right there. Putting that down for later. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to shut up for a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to actually throw Michael Lee into the conversation here, because this carbon tax policy that you might be hearing explained by Adam for the first time versus the opportunity of the conservative axe the tax policy where they would just get rid of carbon tax completely. What do you think the Canadian person is really thinking when it comes to these taxes, Michael Lee?
They just don't want to pay them. They want them to be gone. They want things to be cheaper. Whether it's gas, food, just everyday supplies you be buying, they want things to be cheaper. That's what everybody wants. So you say carbon tax and they pay, but immediately stiffens up and gets all tense about it because, great, how much is it going to cost me now?
Yeah, I totally understand that. And the liberal media in this country might have you believe that, this is no longer a one issue election, that this carbon tax discussion is gone by the wind and everybody's going to axe the tax. Do you actually buy into that once understanding exactly how these liberals versus these conservative agendas are going? Like, do you think liberals are actually just hiding the tax and conservatives are actually going to accomplish the axing the tax like they said?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Like, what do you think?
Which
One do you think? Which one do you think you could trust?
That's a tough one. That is really a tough one.
Well, they're politicians. You can't really trust any of them.
Yeah, it's hard to think of either.
Yeah, I shouldn't say what trust. I
it's
should
a strong
say,
word.
Yeah, exactly. Which would you prefer? Like, would you prefer the promise of axing the tax versus this complicated carbon tax method that they're trying to keep in play here?
Well, yeah, I'd rather the taxes be gone altogether. Because like you said earlier, or Adam said earlier, sorry, like the putting it onto other, segments that's still going to end up paying
in the
more.
economy.
Yeah,
still going to be paid.
Exactly. So is it really gone? No, we just don't see it. Right? Yeah. It's just going to be other places you spend the money instead. I'd rather it be gone completely.
Yeah, but, and an economy, sorry to interrupt,
that's okay.
An economy that's already struggling and that may be subject to tariffs.
Yeah.
He's going to just shift more tax to them. Go ahead.
No, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I just, you don't, but do you actually see the conservatives cutting it and axing it? Do you think they actually will?
Thank you for the question, Michael.
That is a good question. Lots of people are asking it.
Yeah. I mean, why not? The conservatives actually have despised this carbon tax plan. They've been previously criticized for not having an actual plan on environment. But now that we've seen the impact of carbon tax in Canada for a while now, people are kind of starting to realize, you know what? Maybe that's not so helpful. Maybe we actually have to have proper policies in place besides a tax policy to actually implement healthier environmental policies over tax and tax and tax again. I believe them in their nature, because they often want less taxes as conservatives, and we find that since this has been their swan song for the entire time that Pierre Poilievre has been the leader of the Conservative Party, why are they not going to do it? They're hanging their entire their entire trustworthiness on this main policy. And you know what? They just have to get enough seats in the House of Commons to be able to vote in a change in legislative authority. So the reality is, if they have the seats, they have the power, I believe they'll do it. And that's all we need for them to have. And I have no reason to believe it, because I believe firmly that this one particular issue is the one thing that they'll fully commit on, and the rest of the things that will be economic development that they may have to struggle to negotiate with current policies and legislature that's in place right now in order to communicate with developing with First Nations communities and environmental concerns, because obviously those are still going to be concerns, but they're going to hopefully push towards more economic development like we see throughout the country or province of Alberta. I want to ask one additional question on
No,
the
you're out
front.
of questions. Sorry.
Dang it, I used them up. I didn't even know.
You run out. Michael Lee says no more.
The additional question I have is on the front that Justin Trudeau is resigning, and he's been in place for 9 years. We've currently seen some polling from liberal-minded medias like Toronto Star saying that Canadians are wealthier under Justin Trudeau's tenure as Prime Minister. That 23% increase in national or in household per capita wealth in terms of lesser poverty rates in Canada here. I wanted to ask you, Adam, specifically, do you believe the stats, or are they picked and cherry-picked numbers and data?
I feel like I would have to spend some time dissecting this a lot more, but I am certain that data is being cherry-picked to support this outrageous claim that somehow we are more wealthy when we have more people going to food banks than we've ever had, and we are looking at a generation that will not be able to afford homes in our cities. Like, it is insane to turn around and look at those realities. Like, look at the homeless encampments all over the place, addictions problems, and to turn around and just say that he has made us more wealthy. Like, who did he make wealthy? That is absolutely preposterous, and I don't buy it for a second. So I would love to see how they arrived at this conclusion that somehow we're 23% more wealthy. I'm just absolutely not buying that.
Well, there you go. And I think that's the basis of what it takes to sway an election when we look at conservatives and liberals. People are not simply buying into the stories and narratives that these liberals are stating to us. Maybe conservatives will win, as recent polling has shown, even though it's getting closer. I really don't know. Karina Gould, we haven't talked about her in a while. She is that House of Commons leader.
Oh, yeah.
She was recently in the news talking about if she was the leader of the party.
Well, we won't have to worry about that happening.
Yeah, that's probably true. But however, it goes to my point. She was stating in the recent article that I watched, she was going to continue that gun ban and make it even more serious, and she was going to get more guns off the streets with this gun ban. But we've already previously discussed costs billions of dollars and hasn't really taken in any significant number of guns. So what I'm hearing from another popular liberal in the federal party is that they're going to just continue with the same old policies and not worry about what Canadians think. I know Canadians want less guns, but we know they're coming from the U.S.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to jump in there. Like, I'm just doing all the interrupting this
That's usually my job.
When we're talking to our American friends who are discussing the fentanyl issue, which is a real issue, we could, bring up to them the incredible amount of illegal guns smuggled into our country from theirs and the deaths that those are causing as well. It's another issue that perhaps we could discuss with them, and when we have to bargain and negotiate.
Yeah, excellent point. Well,
Yep.
There we go.
Good.
We got liberals with the same old problems and not solving them.
Yeah, yep. And the world's slowest and longest resignation, I feel, that has ever happened.
We're talking about Justin taking forever to get the hell out of here.
Can he just be gone?
Yes, but not soon enough.
True.
Well, that's about it. I think we'll continue this discussion further, but I do appreciate your viewpoints on these liberals and conservatives. I think we will find out as an election actually does get announced at some point, and policies start to be announced by either party once Mark Carney's in, I guess.
That's when we'll start to hear.
We'll start to hear the real
the substance.
promises, the substance
And the lies about taxes from liberals. There'll be lots of those.
Well, and we will try to dissect it at that point. That's what we like to do.
Yep.
Criticize as the media should.
Yep. And then 6 people will watch it.
And they will believe us.
Which is great. That's double the 3 it used to be.
We are improving. I thank you guys. And on that note, I want to ask everyone, share this podcast with a friend that you think might enjoy it. Other than that, I'm going to say goodnight and goodbye, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.